Hello, I'm Keith with the Trombone Shop at Trent Music, back with another instrument review for you. And today it's a little less of a full review and more of an update, specifically about the new design of the Butler Trombone C12 bass trombone. We've talked about the Butler experience on a whole variety of levels, whether it's their instruments, whether it's their mutes. And one of the great things about makers like Butler is they're always looking to improve the experience. Their brand new bass trombone design, and really it's the classic C12 design, but with a few tweaks, is a really good example of this continuing effort to improve. So they made a few changes. We'll talk about these changes, but I'm really excited to take a play on the new iteration first so you can hear this in action. So I'm going to be playing the Butler C12D. We'll talk about where the D comes in just a second. I'm going to be playing everything today on my trusty Hammond 19BL mouthpiece. Those of you who have watched any of our reviews, content at all, know that the Butler trombones, their instruments, their products, have certainly been a part of our offerings in the shop since we were able to begin a relationship with them a handful of years ago. And you can certainly go back and watch some other videos talking more in depth about the Butler experience, what they're bringing to the table. For those of you who are catching this the first time, Butler, David Butler, and his team have really been on the cutting edge of carbon fiber designs, whether we're talking about just, outer hand slides or, full instrument designs, mutes, sousaphone bells. So they've really been doing a ton of development work that's been really, really well received. And we've talked about the experience with these instruments from small bar tenor up to bass trombone, right? But one of the great things, like I mentioned, is having this ongoing relationship with the Butler team is seeing the development, the time, and the thought that they're putting into these instruments. The new C12D design is a really great example of this. So the C12D is really their same large bore, bass trombone design with a few tweaks, in particular a dual bore hand slide. So a few specifics with this here. So obviously we're looking at a primarily carbon fiber design. So we have a 9.5-inch carbon fiber bell. The bell is done up in their gloss finish, right? And then that is paired with an Instrument Innovations dual rotor setup in the classic F, G flat D configuration with the carbon fiber tuning slides here. All of this, and here's one of the new big changes is we have a dual bore hand slide. In the past, the standard C12 setup was a single bore 562. Now we're looking at a dual bore setup, a 562, 578 type of setup, right? 562 first leg, 578 second leg here, right? So we have that, and with a couple of other changes. One of the things that the Butler team has introduced over the last year or so here have been their carbon fiber lead pipes. So the C12 here comes with two carbon fiber lead pipes, two different lengths here as well. And the other change, addition that they've made is kind of changing up how they do the Williams style grip. So instead of doing the actual bracing on the hand slide in the curved Williams style, they now have this really wonderful 3D printed removable grip here to take the place of that kind of curved Williams style experience. So we have some changes now. Of course, the question is, what do those changes bring to the table? Some really nice things, right? I've talked about before, I really like the Butler instruments throughout For me, the larger instruments, the large bore tenors, the bass trombones almost feel a little bit more natural. I really like the small bore tenors. I find I have to change a little bit how I approach the instruments to get them to kind of play great. I love it, just a little bit different. The large bore tenors, and especially the bass, I feel like match with me more as an individual. I don't have to change what I do as much. I think the new C12D really kind of adds to that experience. So compared to the C12, and now I will freely admit, the last time I've had a C12 in the shop was probably a year and a half ago. So I'm just going off of recollection, but compared to what I remember with the C12, the C12D, that dual bore hand slide definitely has a little bit, maybe a little bit more open blow, a little bit more stable blow is, I think, how I would describe it. It definitely has a little bit more depth to the sound, maybe darkness, but I don't know if that's necessarily how I want to think about it. I've talked about carbon fiber and how I feel like in general the carbon fiber tends to be at least a little bit denser sound. I think this is certainly still the case. To me, it's got a little bit more breadth to the sound. There's a really nice weight to the response. And again, it's not heavy, and the outside sound is not like super rounded, but it feels like it has like, it's a really balanced, outside of the sound where it's got some weight to it, but there's still some clarity to it. And what I find with it is that, first off, when I lean into it a little bit, it definitely gets a little bit more of that impact, but it doesn't get bright and edgy. And that's one of the things I seem to remember from the previous C12, the single board design, is that when you push the dynamic, you got more of a pop and immediacy, which I really liked, but this feels like it maintains a little bit more depth of sound, but still giving you some of the impact. Another thing that really stands out to me with this design is how smooth the response is, the movement is between partials, in particular in the lower register. I'm admittedly not a full-time bass trombone player, and so anytime I have a bass where I feel like, I actually have like real access and fluidity through the trigger register, a lot of times that's a sign to me that it's the bass, the instrument is doing more of the work with it. But honestly, with this, I felt like going in and out of the valves and everything just felt incredibly fluid, incredibly stable, but without necessarily being like super clicky. Sometimes we can have setup where certain partials feel like they're really locking in place and maybe a little bit more difficult to actually move from partial to partial. That's not the case here. Everything, it's stable, it's locked in, but I still feel like I'm able to move easily through the different partials, the different registers within all of that. And finally, I think, like I said, just the overall experience, I think, is really, really great with this instrument. So to summarize, I think the overall with this instrument is fantastic. The build quality, as always with all the Butler stuff, is great. And there are things, obviously there are a ton of customization options. With this one, we did a fixed bell. Obviously, they're offering cut bell designs. For those folks, their standard setup on the braces here and everything is just for an unlacquered, just nickel silver. But, they still, depending on pricing, may be offering, silver plating, gold plating options within all of that. So they really kind of get that balance where you've got customization options, but the quote-unquote boilerplate designs like the C12D are fantastic playing instruments in their own right, and I'm really glad that we've been able to put hands on this and be able to share the experience. So if you have any thoughts about what you heard with the C12D, maybe you have a C12, you've been able to play this, your feedback, what differences you might notice, love to have you put those in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please think about subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you as a part of our community, and you can find the Trombone Shop on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, thanks for watching.